the first question, the very common question will be, you will be asked to explain your project. What exactly is your project about? Now that is a very common question, yes. But what are we supposed to be careful there about? See, not everybody in the interviewing panel is going to be a technical person or someone who holds a high knowledge of technical things. So you have to make sure that you explain your project in very simple terms, yet you make it sound interesting and effective. So that is the challenge there. So you have to, for example, if I'll give my example later on actually for the second point which I'm going to mention.
Yeah.
So again, what I'm saying is you have to please don't get very technical. Don't talk about extreme, specifications of load cells or specifications of a particular system, because the person might not be able to relate. You have to speak it in simple terms, explain what your project is going to be, what is it going to do, and why is it good, so that even he can understand. So this is always a question. This will be a question for sure. So you just have to prepare yourself and deliver that properly. That is the first question which I had. Now another question which I personally feel is the most important question in the interview during embassy is the Japanese gentleman will ask you, how is your project going to help Japan and your country, which is India in this case? I personally believe this is the most important question, and for this you should do some research before appearing. Now I will give my example in this case so that you can understand better. For example, my project is about exoskeletons for rehabilitation process, but there are some more details to it. Okay, now when I was asked this question, I did some research earlier. Now my project is supposed to help people who are suffering from loss of muscle control, which generally happens to people who are older, people who are basically senior citizens. Now if I talk about Japan has the highest number of it has the oldest population. I think it has the oldest population. So if I talk about Japan, this technology, whenever it gets successful, whenever it gets completed, will be extremely useful in Japan, because that is the population there. Most of the people are old and they will need it, and this will be beneficial. So there I proved how this is very beneficial for people in Japan. Now what about India? India actually has a very young population, but we do not have this technology anyways. We do not have very advanced rehabilitation processes for loss of muscle control. So in case of India, I mentioned how even though we have a very young population, we would be extremely benefited from this technology. So I just gave you a very brief example of how you can do it. So I would strongly recommend do some research, understand how is your project going to affect. What I mentioned is the social impact. It doesn't have to be a social impact. It can be a technical impact as well. For example, your project will improve the efficiency of a particular, let's say, power extraction mode in Japan or in India. So but I would strongly recommend that you be ready with this question, because this always comes and it's extremely crucial. So that is what I would emphasize on again. As I mentioned, it could be any impact, social impact, technical impact, but do some research, get the facts, and be ready with that. Now, another question, which I believe is going to be there for sure, is the Japanese gentleman will ask you, why are you choosing Japan as your destination for education? Now, Japan, to be honest, is not one of the most famous higher education destination. They'll actually, like during my interview, they actually told that to my face, that you people generally prefer US, Canada, or UK. Why have you chosen this place? And there I would actually recommend to be honest, to be completely honest. You just tell them, why do you really like Japan? What is the first thing which clicked in your head when you think of Japan? Or why do you just love that country? Even if it's anime, even if it's manga, that is completely all right. Like in my case, I mentioned how I've always been fascinated by the fact that they have bullet trains since last century. Not even this century, since last century. They have humanoids since last century. So I would love to be in a country which is so advanced already in technical terms, in technology. I would love to be there, and I would love to appreciate. Also, another thing which I mentioned was how we all know Japan is incredibly small. It does not have a lot of resources as compared to United States or China. But if you look at the list of economies, Japan actually is the third best economy in the country. It has the third best economy in the whole world. So I also said that how I want to understand how does a country with such limited resources is so high on the economy list. There must be something which is right there. Something good is happening. So I want to experience that. I want to experience the work culture. I want to understand why are you so good. So these are the things which I said. You obviously will have different answers or might have same answers. So be ready with your honest answers on why would you choose Japan as your destination. This is something important. Apart from this, there will be there could be some spontaneous small questions about how are you going to take part. For example, are you willing to take part in cultural events which will happen in Japan? These are very, very simple questions, and there you can answer whatever you feel like. But these are the main questions which I experienced, which I think are the most crucial one.